Welcome, everybody, once again to Irish Sports Daily Power Hour. I am your host, Mike Frank, here with Jamie Uyeyama, and we are going to talk some Irish football once again. And if you don't remember, you can check out Irish Sports Daily and all the premium content that we have. You can go to the front page of Irish Sports Daily and click on the premium section and sign up today. Obviously, lots to talk about with Notre Dame football and Notre Dame recruiting, and obviously, with such a great season going, there are opportunities for hopefully post, the playoff and all that type of stuff is still in play. We're going to talk a lot about the game, and we're also going to talk about Navy because, Navy always scares you, especially with the first-time defensive coordinator. And I think Marcus Freeman, pointed out how difficult that is as a first-time defensive coordinator. And so we'll definitely talk about Navy as well. Before we get going, I wanted to mention once again our first sponsor, which is ESQ Clothing, founded by ND alum Ge Wang and Chicago's go-to for best custom suits, shirts, and sport coats. As Notre Dame reloads for the season, now's the time to refresh your wardrobe and add the perfect suit, sport coat, tuxedo, or casual jacket for fall. ESQ master tailors combine next-level craftsmanship with the finest fabrics to deliver a fit that's built just for you. Now with showrooms both downtown Chicago and in Winnetka, book your custom fitting and step into Chicago or into confidence with Chicago's finest. Mention ISD at your appointment and receive 10% off your entire purchase. I see our lovely producer there, Greg Flamong, the Monger, coming on to say something here. What do you got for us, Greg?
Yeah, it's very important to point out. It's the Black Friday sale is starting this weekend after the Navy game. It will be however many points Navy scores, you get that much percentage off on all
score on Navy
items. Yeah, they score on Navy. Did I say it the other way?
Yes.
Oh yeah, how much Notre Dame scores? You want? We're tracking Notre Dame's points in this game.
We don't. We want these guys. We don't got these guys.
We don't want that.
We
don't want that. So, however many points Notre Dame scores in the game, you'll get that percentage off on all online items through Black Friday. Usually, this starts a little bit later, but it's going to go on for
what a deal.
All up into Thanksgiving. So, wanted to point that out. Code is live through Thanksgiving. Use code ISD for that. So not valid on custom items and gift cards. So wanted to point that out. God's doing the business once again.
Man, that's a good deal. That's a really good deal. So hopefully they'll score well over 50 and people will be all fired up for that. That would be a heck of a deal. So we'll see what happens. All right. Yama, let's talk about the game. I don't know. I don't even know what to say. I think that there was some good it just wasn't a very good performance. I will admit I didn't get to rewatch it, unfortunately, because I was one of the YouTube subscribers, and so I had to go another route, and then so I didn't get the opportunity to rewatch. So I will say my understanding of what went wrong was based off of just the game performance, and I didn't really get a chance to rewatch it, and so I'm not going to go too heavily into my thoughts, other than I have some, and the first one being, I just don't understand short yardage. I just don't know. I mean, I thought, Jamie, with the week off that we would see something different, a different plan, a different formations, different something, and we just didn't see it. It seemed very, very similar. Bunch everybody in tight, and we're going to try and push these people off the ball, which really they didn't do the entire game. Obviously, BC did a good job of doing that, and I think Denbrock was smart and understood what BC was trying to do, tried to hit some big plays, hit a bunch of them, which were backbreaking, and they could have been backbreaking if Notre Dame wouldn't have fumbled and all the other things that they had go wrong in the game. So I don't have a problem with what Denbrock called in the game as far as, a lot of the things he did. I thought a lot of it was what he had to do. There, the way BC was playing, it was run blitz. It was all linebackers moving forward. It was all safeties moving forward. There was one time, and there was one time, I think it was 3rd and short or 4th and short. Notre Dame, again, everybody bunched in there. There were 11 guys in the box, and Notre Dame still ran a play. I mean, I'm sorry, Jamie. That's when the offensive coordinator has to say, Marcus, we need a timeout here. Because I don't care who you are. 10 cannot block 11. They cannot block 11. And if that's the way they're going to play it, you have to call timeout there. So there's just nothing ever to the outside, Jamie. Nothing ever goes outside. You don't bounce it outside. There's no pitch to the outside. There's no misdirection in there. There's no jet sweep. There's no crazy motions that you have to worry about. There may be a motion of a tight end moving, but the only reason is because he's going to block. And I think that's the one thing that's a little bit concerning. I think Denbrock's done a pretty good job throughout the year. Sure, there's some calls that everybody's going to question, but I think this is kind of the one thing that I just don't understand why they haven't come up with a different plan. And you have two of the best backs in the country. You've got a pretty good offensive line. And it was interesting in Marcus talking about their third down defense. And he's like, well, sometimes it's pretty hard to stop anybody on third and short, unless you're Notre Dame's offense, I guess. So this is it is kind of a question that that's the one thing I'm just not sure about this offense, and you're going to have to fix this because you're going to struggle against really good teams if you don't. So just want to get your thoughts here.
Well, yeah, I think if you look at that, if you look at obviously short yardage, and you look at fourth down, and I know they hit the one big play for the touchdown on fourth down, but they missed the other 4th and 3 call. That was obviously a big play in the game because they're driving it on them. The second drive was great, except for that. That was,
yeah, sure.
The first drive, wasn't good, but the second drive, what Marcus said in the press conference, it was really good. It's just, you got to convert on 4th and 3. And the big difference between last year's team, this offense is so much better than last year's offense in so many ways. Obviously, they're unbelievably explosive, not just running the ball and passing the ball as well. And they're literally second in 20+ yard plays per game next to Oregon in the country. It's the second most explosive offense in the country, according to that. And if you look at it, they're 5th in yards per play, they're 8th in points per game against FBS competition. So I understand it is a little bit of champagne problems, we're complaining about, whatever, because you have to understand the context of that. But it's frustrating. It's frustrating for fans, and it should be frustrating for Notre Dame. It has to be as well, because that game had no business being close. It had no business being close. And and obviously there's some stuff with the kicking game obviously plays a big part of it, and we'll get into that. But just red zone, 4th down, red zone, the last, you can say, oh yeah, they fumbled, and that's a thing that happened in this game and whatever. But if you just look over the last, 4 games in the red zone, they're 54% scoring touchdowns. It's not a fluke. You know what I mean? It's happened enough. And 4th down, they don't have answers on 4th down. And I understand some of it is the short yardage thing, we're talking about. They don't have the Riley Leonard factor, but those are areas like red zone. And, Notre Dame was a top 20 red zone offense last year, even when they were playing great defenses late in the year. Right. And they were obviously a great short yardage team, and they were a great team at converting on 4th down. They were top 10 in the country on 4th down conversion. That is basically the difference between the offense being very good, which it is right now, and being elite. Because CJ Carr came back and was everything that everyone would have wanted in the game in terms of he looked exactly like the guy that he was before.
Yeah.
And he was making great throws.
Played really great. Yeah.
Played great. And totally understandable. It's yeah, of course they weren't going to Boston College wasn't going to let Love and Price go off in the game. So for anyone complaining about that, it's like you said,
the running game was just not going to be there no matter what.
They did it on purpose.
I cannot remember a team that committed that many resources against the run. I really can't. The big plays were open all day, and I understand, that you want to you want to be somewhat balanced,
run with your backs. Yeah,
certainly. And you got a Heisman Trophy candidate and all this type of stuff. You want to give them some opportunities, but BC, I mean, they really committed to we're stopping the run. There's just no doubt about it. And if you're going to do that, you're going to give up some big plays. And I love to see, I love to see, what I really liked seeing, Jamie, was CJ Carr overthrow that throw. I loved seeing that, right? Because he'd been underthrowing everything. And so I liked seeing that because he's starting to understand, okay, I'm underthrowing everything. Sometimes I got to put a little bit more on this. And then, I thought the next ball was a very nice ball. And so he's getting really good at throwing the ball deep. Way better than I thought he would be because we just had never seen it. Even in high school, he didn't have time to throw the ball deep. And a lot of times he was just blitzed constantly and he had a bad offensive line. And that's what gave me hope that he was going to be a good quarterback, because when you see all this, the kind of pressure he had to deal with, he really handled it very well in high school. So that gave me a lot of hope that he would be a good quarterback because, how you perform in those situations really is a difference between whether you're going to be good or bad. And a lot of times between good and great. And he's done a good job. But anyway, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, I just want to hit on the point that you were talking about with like the perimeter stuff, because I really think that was missing in the game. And it doesn't always have to be about like jet sweeps and all that. But, there's a play in the game. It was in the third, in the third quarter. They're driving on the scoring drive. I believe it was the scoring drive right after it was 12-10, and they obviously needed that. They needed a score on that drive. It was an important drive. Offense delivered. That's great. But there was a play where they were, completely selling out, like just like blitzing the house there, and they had an RPO set in, and the Carr hit Malachi Fields on it out. They got like 8 free yards basically from it. And I get there was the point in Miami that was a problem to not run the ball more in that situations, because I think actually there was times when it was like, well, it's even numbers here. Carr can't pull this. And they kind of took the ball out of his hands in that way because they were like, we can't trust him here. Now you gotta kind of trust him more in this situations, because there's going to be other teams who I guarantee Pitt is going to play this way.
Oh, totally.
Maybe not totally, but very close to it, because they already have their safeties. Like their safeties are at 10 yards and they are coming downhill. And Notre Dame's going to have to just cook them through the air. That's probably how you're going to win that game, because they're going to say, we're not going to let you run.
Yeah.
And they're obviously much better defensively than Boston College, but you're going to have to do stuff more on the perimeter, and you're going to have to do some of these things. Like this would have been a perfect game for that little like skip RPO where you're running to the flat and you're hitting either Eli Raridon to the flat or Carr's running it. I guess the whole thing is like Carr isn't. I understand why they don't want him to run. I don't understand why he doesn't get down. Like he just he invited himself to get lit up on the one run, which was a good decision to run, but it was like, get down, man. Like, but and I get that he doesn't really. He just kind of does. He doesn't have the natural feel for it or whatever. But you got to have that in. That has to be part of it. It has to be something there, because those are just free yards and free, like successful plays that have to be mixed in, and teams have to respect that. And if they don't respect that, you should just kill them on it all day. And so I think there is some of that where I'm like, you know what? I think there was a little bit of like, they kind of, and Greg and I talked about this after the game, like, there's a little bit of like, well, it's BC and we don't want to like, they don't have to expand the stuff so much. And we're going to be okay with just run and play action and beating them over the top and doing this kind of stuff. But they got to do a little bit more there on the perimeter, because they have to have that baked in more. Because it's really like, I mean, I see a lot of like criticism of Demrock, and I think some of it is fair. Some, but like, let's be honest, like BK is getting fired because Denbrock left. If Denbrock was still there, he'd probably still have his job, because their offense would be way more competent and better than this. Mike Denbrock's a very good offensive coordinator. You know, he's probably one of the best in the country. But it doesn't mean he's, you know, you can't
Flawless.
criticize him.
Yeah,
you
sure.
can't say like this is whatever. And
I mean, I have flaws, you know what I mean? And you have flaws, and we do some things wrong now and again, you know?
yeah. And people are
Not
gonna
you
come at
much,
us.
but me
Yeah.
more than you. Yeah. Me more than you doing wrong things. But I'm just, you know, I think in Denbrock's defense too, a lot of times those fourth downs are in the red zone. And we've seen sometimes when CJ is in the red zone and you kind of roll him out and you let him have some run pass options,
Yeah.
or you let him, he doesn't make the best decisions, you know, and turns the ball over. And I guess
Taking
it doesn't
sacks.
matter because you're
Taking
getting,
sacks,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Well, you know, you're getting, you know, if it's fourth down, it's over anyway, so it really doesn't matter. But if it's third down, that's a situation. But yeah, sacks and picks and things like that. But you can't get better unless you try at something, and so he's going to have to get better at that. But I just think that offensively, it was a calamity. It was just like a whole bunch of things just going wrong at the same time, and we know that they can play better than they can, and they will. Defensively, I got a problem with what they did, and I've been vocal about this. I know people are going to say 10 points, and they're going to say whatever, 27 yards rushing or whatever the case may be. Yeah, those are nice. I don't have a problem with that. But what you don't do, Jamie, is you don't let an average passer, and let's be honest, he was very average before this, 52%. You don't let an average passer go 17 and 19. You just don't. You have to start putting some pressure on him at some point. And it was quite amazing. As soon as they did, he made all kinds of errors, and that offense was dead in the water. So to me, I like, look, you know, Matt put a thing up in about pass rush and havoc rate and pressure rate on when you're just rushing for. And Notre Dame is moving up in that category. That's the plan. That's where you want to be. There's no doubt that Ohio State is good because they're number one in that category. If you can rush, you know, 4 guys and have success, you know, you're going to be pretty successful on defense, and you're not going to give up a lot of points. And that's what Ohio State has done. That's what Ash is trying to do. I get that you're trying to do that. And I've also said you can't be good at something unless you do it, right? You have to try it and work at it, and you'll get better at it. So that comes into play as well. But at the same time, when your offense is struggling and you have the ability to shut down something and give your offense more opportunities, you got to do that. So that's my big problem with defensively. What they did it cost them the game? No. Was it ever going to cost them the game? No. But what it did do, Jamie, I'll tell you what it did do. It didn't allow for Kenny Minchey to get any reps, and you need Kenny Minchey someday. You may need Kenny Minchey someday. It didn't allow for Chris Tarek to get any reps. I mean, they're in a world of hurt if somebody gets hurt. They're in a world of hurt, and we know this, especially if it's a tackle that gets hurt. They're in a world of hurt. Didn't allow them to get any reps, right? Didn't allow any of the interior defensive linemen who, by the way, if guys go down, they're going to be called upon. And those guys are green. Mukum is green. You know, everybody they got besides those 5, well, now 4 because Rubio's out, very green, have not played much at all. So that's what you lost. And then you've also lost the opportunity to make a statement when so many other teams that are competing, you know, in the from 8 down as far as the slots go, or 6 down, everybody competing for those slots, you know, you could have made a statement and that didn't happen. And I think defensively, because they had the ball so much and possessed it so much, that made it difficult to make the statement. And then also, too, it made it difficult for those guys to get those reps that are very, very important. And that's what Notre Dame got last year, right? They blew these teams out. So those guys got reps and they became better players because of it. And we don't know what's going to happen with injuries. You can't, you know, play football to say, well, we got to do this in case we get injured. But if you play smart football, you get those opportunities to do it. So again, I have no problem. I think Chris Ash, since the first couple games, has done a really good job. It really has, and it's hard to argue that he hasn't. He's done a good job and done some things that have turned this thing around. The team is playing like you want them to. I just didn't understand why they played it this way in this particular game. And I thought it was just interesting how as soon as they decided to be aggressive, all kinds of crazy things happened to BC and they couldn't do anything, and they just kept making mistake after mistake after mistake. So your thoughts on the defense?
Well, I think that was the thing, is that it became obviously they played well, like overall, right? And that's the thing. It should have been obviously 7 points, right? Because there was the phantom face mask call that we should point out too, right? Like, and the reffing was atrocious again. We don't need to go into it, but yes, it was atrocious. They only gave up 2.5 yards for playing first down. Like, that's awesome. Like 3.6 yards for playing the game. Like, awesome. And like you said, the rush defense, awesome. All that kind of stuff. Got to the quarterback. They had like over 50% pressure rate, all that kind of stuff. 29.3% Havoc rate. Like, ton of guys making plays. Great. Second and long was way too predictable, and that was the thing. And it's like, yes, it is nitpicky because of the results, but it is true that like that was the point. Like, basically when Grayson James went to the game, like I just thought that was first of all, he's hurt, and that was one of the things too. I think they respected him like too much as a runner early because of that, and maybe that's why they weren't doing it. But it was too predictable where every single time that it was second and long, because it was second and long all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. They had like probably like
and third and long often.
First, right?
And third and long and often. And they'd pick it up.
On those long drives, a lot of those were like they converted on third and fourth and short or whatever, right? Because they got 8 yards on second down. And a lot of that was because they played super soft on second long, which is funny because they haven't been playing that way. And I actually think that is the one way that I thought was the biggest adjustment for Notre Dame, was that they were like super aggressive on second and long. And I think that was like the kind of same mentality that they had. So that mentality is missing. Now, I do think some of it was because partially some of the reason for it was Lewis Bond was when they were playing man again, like Devontae Smith. I know he hasn't played like, in many, many games, but he did not look good in this game. Like he was not, he did not look good in that matchup with Lewis Bond. Like, he had chances to like tackle him on, it was like 3rd and 5. He had him at the 3 yards, miss a tackle, right? Beat in man a couple times, right? Like, he gave stuff up. Golden got beat by, Bond and man too. So I think there was some of that, and Bond had a good game. I mean, in saying that too, they forced the ball into him. They also got a couple picks when that happened, and they did a good job in the second half against him. And part of that was that they played more zone in the second half, and I get that. And maybe there's obviously something where Christian Gray's not in the game. You have Mark Zachary. Maybe you don't want to play as man because it's as much man there because of that. And I get that to a certain extent, right? Because obviously earlier when you're doing it in the season, like it was like almost unfair what they were doing to Zachary in the Purdue game, or how they were asking him to play. Yeah. But I just thought it just was too predictable on second and long, where it was just like, it was so obvious they were going to play match. They were going to do this. Like they needed to mix it up more. And that was when they had more success later on, because it was like, okay, well, now we're going to light you up with the 6-man pressure. It wasn't like they were doing it all the time, but it was like at the right time, and they were doing that late. But that was missing for like,
most
like
of the game.
Probably like the first like
3 quarters.
Like the first like 3 or 4 drives for Grayson James, because like obviously Lonergan is not a good quarterback.
No, there's no doubt.
And it didn't really matter with him. But when he came, when Grayson James came into the game, there needed to be more like, I understand, okay, maybe the first series or whatever, but there needed to be some kind of adjustment there. It took too long. And it didn't cost them against BC, but it could cost you some against another team.
Yes,
That is
that's
something
where
like
I'm
this.
concerned.
Yeah.
The other thing, Jamie, too, is look, if you're going to do that, I get it, right? If you want to play zone and you want to be cautious, just don't go so far back. I mean, it's like they're already 10 yards back, and at the snap of the ball, they're going another 15 yards back. And it's like, I realize you want to keep everything in front of you, but that just left way too many opportunities. And yeah, of course, you come up, you make the tackle, and you stop them short on third down, or for a third down, but it's third and short, which is what you're trying to avoid the entire game. So I didn't like how on second down they would back up even further. I just didn't like that. And hey, it is what it is. It's a learning experience. Probably won't see much of that to worry about in this game coming up. But, it's with Pitt and some of these other teams. I'm telling you, the Pitt quarterback is a good player. I don't care what anybody says. He's I watched Uyeyama against Nebraska. I think this Pitt quarterback's better than him. I really do. Kid's very accurate. And so they're going to have to be smart about how they play Pitt, but that's down the road, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. Greg, you want to add something?
Yeah, I the other problem too is like because you go back to the Miami game when they played a bunch of zone. I don't know that Devontae Smith is very comfortable playing zone, especially out of nickel. That's just something that I've noticed. He doesn't have a good feel for spaces. The other part too, as you guys were talking about, is they were giving every time they wanted to throw hot, like Jamie brought it up, they would throw hot on every second and long. And it was like Jamie said, they weren't trying to get a first down on that. And I think that's where Ash was kind of getting disconnected from like what BC was trying to do for a period of time, right?
Yeah.
Because Mike said, like, eventually they adjusted, right? But there was a period of time in there when they first brought him in, and for the first couple series, it's like every second and long they would be in. They would drop him in zone, and then he would throw hot, and they would try to get 6, 7, 8 yards, which was like fine. But then they would either get it on third and short, or they would not get it on third and short, but he'd be in 4th and 1, and they would get it then, right? And then there was the other one where they got confused on the bunch trip, so they didn't know who was supposed to pick up the tight end in the flat. That's not a difficult route. They just didn't know Mark Zachary. They both took the same guy. And then that led to kind of a big play there. So that was kind of a confluence of
those are the one
things.
bust that really stood out. Yeah.
And here's something that Jamie can speak to too. Sometimes when a team has two quarterbacks like they do, and none of them are particularly good, and you're playing an offense that isn't particularly good, you don't really have a good feel for what they're going to try, because they can't really do anything. So like when they hit something on like they did with the slot, it's like you don't have a good feel for, in this situation they're going to try this, because they don't really get into these situations a lot.
Because they haven't really been good at anything. So
so like it's kind of hard. It reminds me, Jamie, of when I would play receivers who weren't good route runners. They were actually hard to cover because they don't really run routes in a way that I can read them. It's like they will do this, and they would turn around and there's the ball. It's like, Jesus, what even was that? Right. But there they go, moving the ball. That's kind of how I felt BC was for a good portion of this game. And so I the fact that they did figure it out, and the fact that they did eventually get to the point where it's like, okay, they're getting them off the field. They're pressuring this guy. He's throwing Notre Dame the ball a bunch, and they were able to end the game. I thought that was a good sign. So I wanted to add some color to kind of that conversation, because that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And again, I think I'm sorry, but I think the thing that mattered is when it came on second down, Notre Dame's front four was getting pressure. They were getting home. It was
but the ball was out, and he just is dumping it down. Yeah,
exactly. So Ash has to see that, hey, we're getting the pressure. They're not going to be able to go 10 yards. All right. We need to play up closer. He needs to see that and see that, look, our pressure is getting there. We just need to, we can't be worried about a Boston College, wide receiver getting behind us. They're not going to have time to get behind us because we're getting home in pressure. We may not be getting sacks, but we're affecting, and they're throwing the ball and getting it out really quick because of our front four pressure. So to me, I think you have to look at it and see what you guys are doing well, and say, okay, well, we know that they can't go 10, 12 yards down the field because they just don't have that much time. And to me, I think that was the disconnect. Anyway, go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I think like in a way, this game though, because there were so many plays, I think is actually like super beneficial to Notre Dame's defensive line because you just don't get that many pass rush reps that are going to be like this all the time. And I understand BC's line's not great, but they do have a couple NFL guys on there, although Bowery got hurt. But he was playing hurt before that. But like, and you just see guys be so much more comfortable. And I just wanted to shout out because it's like, as we're like kind of, nitpicking the performance, man, a lot of guys balled out in this game.
Yeah, they did.
Like,
yeah,
so many guys did. And I just think like up front, I thought Jared Dawson, right from the
first two snaps, Jamie,
he was
awesome.
And he was playing like that really the whole game. He was getting off the ball. Man, if he and he's played well this year, like obviously that's a big thing. Him and Hughes have been both like as Greg and I talked about last week. Man, those were like big time additions to transfer portal. But he is just, man, he was awesome and really disruptive and just it changes the game. That's how you get TFLs when guys are going off the ball like that. And I mean, obviously, like the linebackers in general, like, but like KVA is just, man,
monster.
He's just a monster. Bowen is obviously still playing at a high level. Just defensive line wise, like I know Snead had the really stupid penalty. It was super dumb. Don't do that stuff, Jalen, because he is so much better as a pass rusher than he was when they first started him in that role. And he's a problem off the edge and like really like working stuff with his hands that he never did before, where he was just kind of running around and just motor. And now you're like, oh, now this guy's working moves. Like if him and like you saw that more with like KVA doing that stuff. And obviously Boubacar had like a good game, but it wasn't like he wasn't even a dominant game. He wasn't the dominant guy, but there were so many guys that played it. And Onye too, you can say, and I know I understand it's BC, but he is a streaky guy and it looks like he's on a streak right now. And he played really, really well, like really well getting after the passer. Then obviously too, they're like, you got guys making plays in the secondary. Obviously Tate Johnson gets a couple picks and Schuler gets a couple picks. Zachary, even though like I said, maybe they protected him a little bit with some of that. Maybe that's why they were doing it. I mean, still, he gave up one catch for 4 yards in the game and like on 4 targets. Like it wasn't like they could pick on him in the game, and they didn't. And frankly, too, like if you just watch, him in coverage, like he was winning, like he was doing well. And I mean, there was just a lot of that the whole game. And Josh Burnham, sorry, Raymond Hornerman. Burnham, like obviously looked like in Freeman mentioned in the press conference, that looked like the kind of guy that I thought was going to be where this year. And now that he's like healthy, because he's a guy that does not miss tackles. Like
they need him this week, big time. Yeah. He's always played well against Navy too.
I guarantee you he will have a monster game this week.
Yes.
He will have a monster game this week. And and it's just one of those things that you don't even think, because he really hasn't been a factor at all this year. And he's barely played in a lot of games. And he's been hurt. We knew he was hurt. But that is just one of those things that you don't even really think about in like the long term of it, of like getting a guy like that healthier. And then all of a sudden it like, that ups the level of your defense when you're getting that kind of thing. And I'm just so impressed with the kind of like the depth and how they're playing up front. And I got to, tip my cap to Al Washington and Nick Sebastian and those guys, for those guys, like really kind of like staying the course, and guys are just getting better. And I really like what they're doing up front. And it's one thing to be like, yeah, you're playing a bad D line. It's like, well, you got to dominate that battle line. You got to dominate that, and that's what they did. They dominated them.
Well, you got to think back to the USC game, right? I mean,
Exactly, that game
they look. I watch USC and Lincoln Riley, idiot. I mean, they are just killing Nebraska running the ball. I'm like, why would you even think about throwing the ball? You're just killing them, just destroying them running the football. And he starts throwing the ball all over. I'm like, what the heck are you doing? But my point being, SC just obliterated Nebraska. You know, when it came to running the football, Notre Dame's defensive line, you know, they destroyed USC when it came to that. And so I'm encouraged by that, because I think that that's where the biggest impact has come on this defense is the front four, but also linebacker play has notched up quite a bit too, which has made them very, very good against the run, which was really what we were most concerned about when it first started this season. And they've really kind of dialed in. And you mentioned, of course, Hughes and Dawson and how big they've been in this, but just getting Anya back to who he was, that's huge. Getting Burnham healthy. You know, Bryce Young, saw some really good pass rushes from him in this game, you know, where he was playing well and getting after the quarterback. That group is starting to play really well, and I'm excited about it.
Mike, there's one last thing on this. They definitely had them, you know, the BC quarterbacks feeling the pressure. You know, our listeners here, they might be feeling the pressure of the holiday season coming up. We want to relieve some of that pressure with some of your gifting ideas. I want to talk to you about Goods Candies. Of course, it's a small Indiana-based chocolate company, recipes going back 100 years, as long as the USC Notre Dame rivalry. Hopefully Goods Candies is going on for a lot longer than that rivalry will. They are a small batch producer of decadent confections ranging from toffee to cream centers. Their latest offering, peanut butter bombs. Goods Candies always wants you to make sure you know what you're getting when you order it. See's Candies, sometimes you don't know what you're getting. Sometimes you get a bad one and you got to put it back. You don't got to do that with Goods Candies. It's got cream centers, have a unique design. You always know what's waiting inside. All varieties are offered in milk and dark chocolate. For the business listeners, Goods Candies offers customized chocolate bar gift boxes. They're not customized wrappers like you get at the bank. Customized chocolate bars include your logo or a message. They just make the ideal client gift, and Goods Candies can handle all shipping for you. The website is www.goodscandies.com. Viewers can save 20% through the end of the year with the promo code ISD. Place your order online or reach out to Goods Candies at goodscandies.com with all questions.
All right. Well, the other thing we talk about, Jamie, is kicking. And, I don't know what to say here. You know, I thought it was interesting when Marcus was asked there towards the end of the press conference, you know, what do you think? Is it mental? Is it physical? And you know what he wanted to say, but he said, well, you know, I think at first it was physical, but now it's more mental. This is all mental, you know, it just is. And, you know, it might be physical with Burnett. I don't know. But, you know, the other two, I mean, there's nothing that is causing them to not kick well. I just don't. It's crazy when you look across the country and you see everybody else has this problem solved, but Notre Dame, and it hasn't been solved that well throughout the years. And Notre Dame has tried to find guys.
Justin Yoon.
Yeah, but honestly, kind of, he was the only.
Like,
and I mean, I realized that they had
out there. Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
I mean, I know that there are, you know, guys who've had the ball go through a lot as pass kickers, but it never looked pretty a lot of times, you know. So it didn't look like it was straight down the middle like you want to see a kick go every single time. And so I don't know, you know. What do you do if you're Marcus here? I don't even know how you handle it. I really don't know what you do.
I mean, I kind of think with like Burnett, it's got to be like partially. I don't know if it is just all mental with him, and he's like, well, he's healthy now, or whatever. But I kind of think you got to you do everything you can to make him be the kicker and try to give him every chance, because he's at least done it. Like he's at least been good. I mean, first of all, he was perfect on the year before all of a sudden he just like, had two bad misses against USC, and then obviously doinks the one on the first.
I will
time.
say he was perfect, but I wouldn't say it was pretty, and that's
it
my
wasn't.
point.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty, but John Doerr, a lot of them weren't pretty, but enough of them were
give
going
you a lot
through,
of faith.
And at least with like Burnett, he's had like success in his career. Well, these other guys haven't done anything in their careers, and obviously, and they have looked terrible. Like just straight up how like you can't really sugarcoat it. They've looked bad. So, and yeah, obviously, like you can't go and find somebody else, to off the street. It's not like that anymore, and you can't. I mean, I'll say this, like, I don't know how you can't, like, you have to throw just like multiple things at it in this off season. And
I think whoever's making the decisions on this probably shouldn't be making the decisions because it just has not worked out well. It just hasn't. I don't know who's made the decision on who or who they've listened to on who, but whoever they've listened to or made these decisions, it's just not working.
I mean, to be fair about the Mitch Jeter one, I mean, obviously his injury was the reason that he was not there. And when he was healthy, he was great. He was great. He actually was great for Notre Dame when he was healthy. It was just the injury that cost them. But and before that, Mason, when Mason was the special teams guy, he found Blake Grupe, who's kicking in the NFL now, and Schrader, who was kicking in the NFL. He's out for the year right now, but he's kicking in the NFL. So those would, but like, I don't know if it's Marty Biaggi just making the decisions or not, or if it's, more than that, or like you said, they're using these recommendations because that's a big thing in the kicking thing, right? It's like Chris Saylor is telling them this is the guy or whatever, right? It's like, it's so hard to know which guy has the mental capacity to do this though, because you can look great. And I mean, they had another kid that they got from a few years ago. Now I forget his name, that like he was a very highly rated guy and then he was gone, he didn't even get a chance. So it's like, I really don't understand how, like, Boston College sucks. They're a terrible football team. Their kicker is perfect. And he's like, got a big leg. Like he's made over 50, all this too. It's not like he's just kicking
straight down the middle. Straight down the middle every time.
And if you look at like throughout college football, there really isn't a lot of the hashtag college kickers anymore. A lot of these guys are really good now. Obviously, with the exception of what's going on at Notre Dame. And I don't even know. I don't even know where to begin, Mike. I'm not even sure really. Because
I think the mush needs to get the checkbook out.
I know that's what it is. He really does.
The mush needs to get the checkbook out, and he needs to write a big check. Go to that BC kid and say, you know what, you got to come over here. Mush, get the checkbook out. I think that's what needs to happen. All right. Okay. Well, let's get into Navy. And I think first of all, I love Marcus standing up there and saying, when they're trying to give him credit about, you were the first defensive coordinator, he's like, no. I love that about Marcus Freeman. And he's standing there and saying, no, you should have seen my first game against Cincinnati. It was awful. We were terrible. I love that because it tells them that this is not an ego guy. You know what I mean? A lot of guys would have taken that and said, well, yeah. You think Brian Kelly would have said that? Hell no. So, no. That's one thing I just love about Marcus is he owns whatever his record is, whatever his anything is, he owns it. And because he knows that, Jamie, and because we've seen what has happened in the last 6 defensive coordinators who showed up and tried to do this their way, and he's done it at Cincinnati, and he's done it here as the defensive coordinator, this is the one time Marcus Freeman needs to step in and say, Chris Ash, I don't care what you think. this is what we're doing. And this is going to work. It's worked every time we've tried to do it. Yes, their offense changes a little bit, but it's like a lot of people say, you know what? There's no way Notre Dame's going to force 5 turnovers. Well, why did they force 5 turnovers? You know why? Because they were aggressive and they were hitting the quarterback and they were hitting these guys while he's trying to pitch the ball. If you are aggressive, you can totally dismantle this offense. And I've seen them do it plenty of times. I've seen them play passive. I've seen them come up with different ways to play the alley. I've seen different responsibilities. Everybody seems to think they have a way to do it. Do not change what has worked so many times. That's what Marcus Freeman needs to do. Sometimes, Jamie, you got to be the boss, all right? And you can say, I'll listen to your plan, but if it's anything different than what my plan is, it ain't going to work, and we're not doing it. That's what the head coach needs to do with this. Of course, they've done plenty of research on it. I'm sure they've looked at all this type of stuff. I'm sure there's wrinkles here and there and things that you got to be concerned about, but aggressive is the way you play this. You have to play it aggressive. The best teams, the teams that shut this down, are aggressive. Notre Dame is big up front. They're physical. They got a bunch of older players up front. They should be able to dictate this game. And having a guy like Junior there who's pretty good at setting the edge, having Burnham now there to set the edge and play his responsibility and tackle well. I mean, this is just what I hope that's what Marcus Freeman does. Your thoughts here?
I think that is what they're going to do, because I think if you just throw on the Navy tape from last year and the Army tape, and obviously those are 2 different offenses, but they're both obviously option offenses. The reason why Notre Dame had so much success at both those games is because, like you said, they were aggressive and they were like, we're bigger and faster and stronger than you, and we are going to impose our will against you as a defense. And almost, I mean, if you remember last year coming into that Navy hadn't had a turnover. They had turned the ball over all year. And then all of a sudden they had 6 or whatever it was in the game, right? And a lot of those were because of just the speed of Notre Dame, and they drop pitches and stuff like that because the pitches were off, because they were like, oh my gosh, this guy's on me here. This guy's going to hit me here. And it's so I got to get this out quicker than normal. And so there is a certain aspect of what, Marcus Freeman was saying, which is 100% true. It's it's different, the speed, when you play them compared to when you're doing a scout team. That is true. But one of the biggest differences in when Notre Dame played Navy last year, when they played Army last year, those teams played terrible schedules the whole season. Same thing with Navy this year. They played a terrible schedule. They were literally dead last in strength of schedule before last week when they played North Texas, which game they lost. That's the best team they played. What do you know? They turned the ball over 3 times last week, right? And it's going to be, you have to go there. You have to realize, hey, they're going to get some plays, and they're going to create some stuff. Horvath is obviously a super dangerous player. They've been, once again, it's Drew Cronick is the offensive coordinator. He does a fantastic job. They really do a lot of stuff to kind of really test you with things, and they do a lot more misdirection, and they do a lot of different things that you have to be ready for, on the go, right? You can't just go. It's so different than playing the old Ken Niumatalolo offense. It's so different.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just something that you have to go and say, hey, we're going to take away your standard stuff. Obviously, you got to take away the dive, all of that kind of stuff. But it really comes down to beating the crap out of them and just being like, hey, you're not on our level. And that's the thing. That's how Notre Dame approached it last year. And that's why I thought it was the best that they've ever looked against those teams, was because they came out with that approach. And so, I mean, this is the kind of week too, where you just you have to kind of unfortunately, because of how the season started, you're like, okay, Chris Asher going to be completely open to this? Because he kind of has to be like, here's the keys to Marcus Freeman a little bit this week, because that's just how it is, right? Hold on, because Greg Wasserman mentioned that the chop blocking, that's not like a thing anymore. You can't do that anymore. They took out that, you can't have those dirty. I mean, they still do dirty stuff. It's still a dirty team. Don't get me wrong. Believe me, I will point out and put gifts out after the game. They're Navy because they're military academy. They get away with being whatever, but they do chop block and they do. But you're not allowed to anymore, and it gets called, and they can't do the cut blocking at the next level and outside the tackle blocks like you used to, and it definitely changes. Like that's why Notre Dame's DBs and linebackers, it's huge for them to win, and it's like this is a thing where Raymond Harden said again, like it's a sneak game, like it is those kind of games. Like KVA, as Marcus Freeman mentioned too, second year playing it, like I mean I think he's going to eat up. Like Bowen, same thing, right? Where all those guys.
Yeah, well, and this is a timing offense, right? And the way you stop this offense is disrupt the timing. And that's what Notre Dame did last year and has done previous years is, they were very, very aggressive and they completely destroyed the timing. And that's why Navy made all those mistakes. And if you let them get their timing down, it's very difficult to stop. So that's why I really hope Marcus takes over. Go ahead, Greg.
I hope Chris Ash is open to new things, right? And I think we can all kind of be open to new things, like different styles of play, whether it's your football team or whether it's your pickleball game, and you can go to the H2 Pickleball Clinic hosted by a top 10 pickleball pro, Will Howes, for the Syracuse game. Of course, H2 Pickleball is founded by Notre Dame alum Todd Haley's teaming with fellow alums Jack Gibbs and Will Howes, a top 10 pickleball pro, to bring Notre Dame fans to Notre Dame Pickleball Crew League. Besides football, what better way to connect and engage Notre Dame fans than through pickleball? Membership is free. Members will have access to special pickleball events and discounts. I mentioned the Will Howes Pickleball Clinic on the Friday before the Syracuse game. Members of H2 Pickleball will also get discounted tickets to the game, right? So Mush has to open up the checkbook for a new kicker. You don't have to open up the checkbook to join the Pickleball Crew League. Contact Todd at h2pickleball.com or call him at 574-339-5195 to join the league. And be sure to visit the H2 Pickleball facility in Mishawaka when you are in town. H2 Pickleball is located at 55801 Evergreen Plaza Drive in Mishawaka, Indiana. And I do have a question for you guys.
Sure.
Unrelated to pickleball. You guys were just talking about it. If you were Chris Ash and Notre Dame played this team with this offensive coordinator last year with this quarterback, what is the one thing that you would do? You would go back and look at the film. What did Notre Dame do?
So, yeah.
Right? Like that is the logical thing, right? So I just have to believe he's going to.
You would think so.
Yeah.
You would think so. But you know what, Greg? I've been following this for 25 years, longer, almost 30 years. I've seen it work so many times. And then a new guy comes in and he decides that he has the secret sauce because he is now the defensive coordinator. I've seen it happen countless times. And then the very next time they do it, they do what they're supposed to do. Marcus Freeman needs to make sure that he doesn't give Chris Ash that opportunity. And he says, watch the film. That's what we're doing because that's what has worked. And it has not just been a Marcus Freeman situation. It's been under Brian Kelly when they had the right defensive coordinators and they were doing the right things. It's been that way forever. And it drives me crazy to see it every time. And it's like, again, probably because I live where I live. I watch so much option football in my life. Now, let me say it has changed a lot. We're not watching Nebraska from the I formation anymore, or the wishbone from Oklahoma or Colorado's version of it. But I've watched that, and the way teams have done it for years and years and tried to defend it. And every single time a team tries to sit there and play assignment football and read and react, it does not work. And you get gouged and gouged and gouged and gouged and gouged. And, that's just what this offense is about. If you allow them to have that kind of successful timing that it takes to run this, and you got a quarterback as good as this one, and he doesn't have to worry about guys crashing in on him when he's trying to make these decisions, he's very good, and he's going to tear you apart. And that's just what has happened over the years. And that's why they're very successful, because a lot of times teams don't have the athletes that Notre Dame does. And because they don't have the athletes, then they try and play read and react, and it's a disaster. So, Jamie, it's interesting because defensively, I've watched this Navy team, and they're just not very good. But what's interesting is they have some guys who are pretty good players, but they just haven't been that efficient. What do you think is the problem here with their defense? And, if you're Mike Denbrock, how do you attack this group?
I think it's always the same thing with them. And I do really appreciate how Brian Newberry has made their defense way better since he's been there. Obviously, he's the head coach now, but he was the defensive coordinator. That was probably the best thing Niumatalolo did towards the end of his career was hire him, because he really kind of turned it around after they were consistently one of the worst defenses in the country. Then all of a sudden they were pretty decent. But the thing is that they're one of these teams that when they have a lot of continuity coming back, they can be decent. And the problem is that they lost a lot of key guys, and they still have some players, like you mentioned, that are good players. But they just don't have enough guys. I mean, obviously they don't have NFL guys on the team. They have tough football players, tough kids. And they're aggressive, but that is the same kind of thing that just gets you just burned. And they're going to give up a million big plays to Notre Dame in this game. It's just, that's what they do, right? They don't have the talent in the secondary. That is a big issue. So, I mean, I think Notre Dame is good. CJ Carr is probably going to throw for 300 again in this game, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is something that's going to happen. They're 122nd at EPA per dropback. They give up 8.0 yards per attempt, which is tied for 113th in the country. And they haven't played good teams
against terrible competition.
Against not good
terrible
competition. So, I mean, to be fair, North Texas is a good offense, but they're obviously they're not as good as Notre Dame's offense. So, they're gonna give up a ton to Notre Dame there, and then also too, it's the kind of thing where they can sell out to stop the run, but they do a lot of stuff because they have to in order to try to create havoc. They do a lot of stuff that makes them unsound, and so because of that, that is one of the kind of things where all of a sudden, you're gonna get runs where it's Price is going to break off a 60-yard run or something like that, because it's you're forcing one of these guys to make a tackle. And if that guy doesn't make that tackle, there's just no second or third level support there, because you're really trying to get in a situation where it's third and long or whatever. Right. So, and that's kind of the game they have to play, and that's how they have to do it. But it's just, against a team like Notre Dame, it's just, you're playing with fire on every series. Right. So,
I'll tell you, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. No, you go ahead, Mike.
If I'm their offensive core or their defensive core, I look at Notre Dame's offense and I say, look, where we're going to get really killed is when we give up big plays. So I'm playing a very soft zone is what I'm doing, because look, get Notre Dame in the red zone. Maybe you win some down there, and that's going to give you a chance to win the game. So if you're trying to play aggressive against this Notre Dame defense, you're going to give up a lot of big plays, and that's how you get out of the game, is by losing momentum and big plays happening. And if I'm their defensive coordinator, I'm saying, look, I know we're going to give up a bunch in between the 20s, but I'm okay with that, because it's going to take them time to get down there. It's going to shorten the game, and that's the way I play it, and say, look, their red zone offense hasn't been very good. And so if we take some gambles down there, maybe we win some and we force them into field goals. And by the way, they can't kick those. So, that's the way I play this game if I'm their defensive coordinator. Your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much how everyone's gonna have to play against Notre Dame, right? If you think about it, but I just think a lot of those times it's going to go. A lot of these plays are just going to go for touchdowns. Is the problem? Is because
I hope you're right. They need them to.
They don't have. They do need them to, but I just think ultimately it just becomes a thing where they just don't have the athletes, and they are. And one of the things that really stands out, and whatever you'll see it in like the scouting report they put up, but they're like a horrible tackling team this year, like really really bad. They're 126. They're 126 in PFF's tackling grades. Like I said, they haven't played a lot of good offenses either. So it's like, and it's difficult to tackle a lot of Notre Dame's guys, and it's just gonna set up for like, I don't know, like they can only win condensed is the only way they can win, because in space, I just think Notre Dame will just pick them apart.
All right, we're going to get Greg on for this last little topic here. Greg, can you come on?
Yes, sir.
Is Indiana the best team in the country right now?
You're asking me first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe. So I'll say, you know what? I'm just going to say yes to that. And I'll tell you why. They whip on teams every single week, and they did well not to win by more against Oregon. And I don't like, if you took out the name and you called Indiana, let's call in Georgia, sure. Or you called Indiana Penn State, just keep it in the Big Ten if you want. They were a playoff team last year. They lost in the first round. Then they come back, and everyone's looking for the downturn. Yes, they had a disgraceful schedule to begin, like the non-conference stuff, right? That's an embarrassment. They've whipped on every team. They destroyed Illinois. Now look, Illinois is I don't think very good, right? They beat USC, but they're
not really a top 25.
They're not really a top 20, but they destroyed them. Like they whipped them.
Yes, they did.
Then they go to Oregon, and like again, it was 30-20. They threw a bad pick six there. Like Oregon couldn't really play offense. And after the pick six and the game gets tied or whatever, and they go down and they score again, right? Like just didn't lose control of the game. They won by, they put up another 50 spot. I think it's like 4 50-point games this year. If they were called Georgia, if they were called Penn State, I think they would very clearly be the number one team in the country. So, I think probably they are. I think their metrics are really good too. This doesn't look fluky. There's nothing about them that looks fluky to me. So you got to say yes, in my opinion.
Yama?
I mean, they're certainly playing the best. They're playing the best out of anyone.
I agree.
I don't.
And that's why I would say they're the best. Because, look, to me, Ohio State has to play well to beat Indiana, right? They're going to have to play well to beat Indiana. We know Indiana's going to play well because they've done that. Really, the only bad game they had last year was Notre Dame. And that was only part of the game.
Ones. They had some other games, like the Michigan game. They didn't play that.
That's true.
If Michigan had anything on offense, Michigan should have won that game.
Yeah, that's true.
And,
that was
and
one.
They obviously didn't play against Ohio State. But I think the difference this year, Mike, is that this Indiana team is better than last year's team.
Their quarterback's certainly better.
Their quarterback's better. I mean, one of the big things was like, which we didn't know at the time, but like Rourke was playing on a torn ACL the whole year.
Yeah.
So he couldn't run. Yeah. So that played a big thing. And obviously Mendoza is more mobile, and that adds to what they can do. But pretty much everybody came back and they added to what they had. It's just a good football team. Like, I'm gonna be really interested when Cignetti, like a lot of these guys, go and see like if they don't take like I don't think they're going to be like this good every year under Cignetti. Like anyone who thinks that, no way. Like I just don't see it. But they're set up this year. They are a real contender. They are a real
Very
contender
well
and
coached.
like very well
Don't
coached.
beat themselves. Don't beat themselves.
I mean, if you look at that game too against last year against Notre Dame, and obviously Notre Dame's offense is a lot different than it was too, but like they gave up the big play and they gave up third down in that game, but that's all they gave up. They really were. That was a good defense last year. I mean, the coordinator is awesome. Their DC
Very
is
good,
awesome. Yes. And they do a ton of stuff to kind of mess up the run game. If Curt Cignetti was more likable, I would root for Indiana. But since he's like his whole everything he did prior to
everything
that,
about him is kind of unlikable.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's like, and how they ducked out of these games, like, these teams that they were supposed to play, like these other, like you can't play. Please, Big Ten institute
Virginia.
that they would have to play. They can't play. That would be, and also too, Virginia's not good, by the way.
They would have had a quality, solid win. Yes,
but it would have. But you'd have a quality win, like. But Indiana would kill that Virginia team. But it's just one of those things. Like now you look back on that and you would say, like, hey, you know what? That was like a fun matchup. Or like, hey, you know what? Oh, Virginia is exposed as this. Or hey, that's a good win because you beat somebody else other than some of the, like, and yeah, they are killing some of these teams and they've beat some pretty good teams too. Yeah. And obviously you win in Autzen Stadium. That is a big win, but it's still a joke that they play 3 cupcakes and just kind of like, Bill Schneider, K-State doing that kind of thing. It's a joke.
That's what they've done too. And look, I don't blame them because that's how you build a program, right? That's how you build a program. You don't want to put all these crazy roadblocks in front of them. And I just think that the problem is now that he's a good team, you don't need to continue to do that. But he's choosing to do that. But that's how you build a program, is to make sure that you have success early to kind of get some momentum going and get some confidence going. So besides those two, I look across college football and even though Notre Dame played poorly, I'm still like not afraid to play anybody. You know what I mean? And I think if Notre Dame played well, they could play with Indiana. They could play with Ohio State. But I do think Notre Dame's going to have to fix this red zone and short yardage situation on offense. They're going to have to fix that. And then, with Ash, sometimes I just don't know what he's doing. And he eventually seems to figure it out, and that's fine. But guess what? He didn't figure it out against Miami, and he didn't figure it out against Texas A&M. And just because he figured it out and it worked against Boston College, it's going to be the same thing when you play a quality team like Miami or Texas A&M, or has this team really developed and they would play them tougher this time around? I don't know, because I do think they'd play them tougher, but I also think, well, not Miami. I don't think Miami's improved, but I do think Texas A&M has improved. Are they a great team? No, they're not a great team, but I think they're kind of right in that next tier with after Indiana, after Ohio State. They're there right now with, the Alabamas, the Notre Dames, and the, Texas A&Ms and those teams. I think that's where everybody's at. And, it's interesting now Texas thinks that they can play some football. So, who knows? We got to hope that Texas A&M can beat Texas and take them out of the running here, and that Vandy loses another game. We got to hope for that as well, to make sure that Notre Dame gets a place in their thing. And then, it'd be nice if Miami lost again, but again, you also need some of the ACC teams to look bad too. So I don't know. I just looked across college football. I just don't see anybody that I'm like, wow, it looks like it's a 2-team race right now for the top. And then a bunch of teams that if they can iron some things out here, they may have a chance. But it seems like those two are the two most complete teams right now. And I think that the others are a little bit away right now. I like Georgia. I don't think Georgia could beat Indiana or Ohio State at this point. they'd give them a game. But Alabama, you got to give Alabama credit. They've played a pretty tough schedule. But what they've played is a lot of teams that are like them, that are probably a top 15 team, but they're not necessarily a top 3 or 4 team. And there's a lot of teams right now between probably 3 and 15 who are all, I think, pretty much similar. And it's a matter of, do you play clean that week as to whether you beat anybody else in that top 15? And that's what's a little concerning, is that, look, Notre Dame was that team last year, right? They played clean down the stretch, and they played clean in the playoff and created turnovers. And because of that, that's why they advanced. The other teams didn't. That's why they lost. So for Notre Dame to get to that level, they need to play clean and they need to play efficient. And that means red zone. That means short yardage. That means doing all the other things. Anything you guys want to add before we shut down the show?
Yeah, well, the one thing I'll say is that because there's so many teams that, like, I agree with you, Mike, that are kind of lumped in there, that I would say, like, it's very unclear. Like, I think it would be actually really hard to be in the committee this year to, like, especially these early ones, to kind of decide, like, where everyone should rank. Because I think a lot of the 1-loss and 2-loss teams are just all right there. They're just like in that same little area, like you said, probably like a top 15, 16 or something like that.
See, I don't think Ole Miss is good. I think Ole Miss.
I don't think Ole Miss is good. Ole Miss is not as good as they were last year.
Yeah,
I think that
certainly defensively they're not. I think Texas A&M would tear them apart. I really do. And I guess we'll find out. But I just Alabama, I think, has some good pieces, but I don't think their defense is that good. Georgia, I don't think their O or D is all that good. Miami is what I thought Miami was going to be. They're nobody. There's nobody in the ACC that I think is good. Certainly nobody in the Big 12 that I think is good. I mean, maybe Texas Tech, but I don't know. They've lost. We'll see how they'll handle it moving forward. Anything you want to add, Greg?
And they've only played teams in the Big 12.
Yeah.
And I just don't think it's that good of a conference. So
yeah, it's a terrible conference.
Go ahead, Greg.
Well, I just think kind of on that point, I do think it's important for Notre Dame to, I think the committee cares about complete teams. And, I think last week was a hiccup for Notre Dame on that front from an offensive standpoint. And it can be overlooked, but they do. And just generally speaking, right, just without factoring the committee, they to be a playoff team, you have to play like a playoff team. And I think looking at Notre Dame last year, like, they played like a playoff team the entire time. And as much as their record, right, mattered or whatever, and they had only the 1 loss and they had some good wins too, but they were playing such solid football on both sides week after week after week. And your opponent matters, and on some front, yes. But, like, when you continue to show that you can play really well both ways, then that's the type of team that you're going to put in there. And this wasn't some, like, for this entire time, I've always thought to myself, if Notre Dame gets the defense figured out, like, they can make a run, like a real run, because the offense looks so good. Now the offense is coming back.
Billy healthy.
Bit. Well, the offense is coming back a little bit, and we're monitoring. Like, I'm monitoring the offense from a efficiency standpoint. It can't keep scuffling. Like, even putting up like 30 something, like, they got to start putting up like 40 something against the teams that they're playing.
Exactly.
Because I don't know, Pitt's got a good defense. They're not bad on defense for Pitt. I wouldn't, if they scored 31 against Pitt and win, I'm not going to have a freak out about it, pending how it actually looks. But beyond that, I think it's got to start to look efficient, just from you're getting the most out of your team kind of standpoint too. Like, it has been a little too inefficient for me, on the offensive side of the ball. I think it's important for Notre Dame to pick it up over the last 4 games here.
Yami,
were you wanting to add anything?
Well, I think that is something that, like, the efficiency part of it is, it is how they can lose, a lot of these games. But I also think that because they have the weapons that they have and all that too, like they can win any game. Like it's just like it's so they're in the weird thing where it's like if they do get it fixed, then I believe like you can put them in. They will, to me, that even I don't care about the 2 losses. Like you can put them into that category with Indiana and Ohio State if that's the case. But if they don't, and even let's just say it stays maybe a little bit better, but it's not quite where it needs to be. I mean, they're still like a contender, but then you're worried about like, are they really going to be able to do it in those games where it's like, no, then you're hoping for some breaks. And it's like, nah, you just want to be better. We want to be better than these teams.
Yeah. The thing that really I think is hurting the offense and people don't talk that much about is, I mean, like you essentially have 3 starters that are out in the interior. I mean, your center and both guards are out. And that's hard for anybody to overcome. It really is. And when you consider how well Ashton was playing and Billy was playing, I mean, wow. And look, Gerby's played well at times. He's played really well at times. He's played suspect at times. That's a first-year starter. It's a talented guy. He's going to be fine, and I think he's going to get better, and he's going to be pretty good by the time they get to the playoffs. Pretty excited about it. I think Otting, because of the things, they got to get Billy back, and that's no disrespect at all to Absher. I think Absher's going to be a solid player. Don't get me wrong, but the best teams have dudes that can just absolutely dominate. And when Billy was in there, he was killing people, just killing people. And they really need that guy because not only is he efficient and he's dominant, but because of his play, that sparks the other guys and say, God, Billy's killing his guy in there. I got to go in there and kill him too. That kind of attitude is what took over Notre Dame's offensive line last year and why they ended up playing the way they did down the stretch. So, hopefully Billy will be back. It's going to be nice to get these guys to get this experience and hopefully they're ready to go as well. Because who knows how long it's going to be. I mean, Notre Dame lost some linemen in the playoff too. So it's good that Absher and Otting and Gerby are getting these reps and stuff because they may be called on even if Billy comes back. And so it's going to be very important. All right, folks, that's going to be it for the show. Hope you enjoyed that. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel on YouTube. And we will be back to talk to you hopefully after another big win over Navy. And we'll be talking about that. And of course, the big game coming up after that. Thanks for watching and listening. And we will talk to you next week on Power Hour.